Hypnosis is a naturally occurring, very important cognitive and emotional process that people like you and me are trying to use to help people make better decisions in life. This brain ability, I think, has tremendous potential for helping us live better.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I wanted to kick off with a little grounding exercise. You guys have been loving them so far. So this one we learned from Janelle Nelson, our EMDR and licensed marriage, family, and somatic experiencing expert. And this is called the VOO exercise. So basically you take a deep inhale. If you do our deep imaginings, I'm sure you've heard this many times over to help drop you into that parasympathetic state. But you take a deep inhale, and on the exhale, you say the word VOO, but in a very vibrational tone, allowing the sound to reverberate through your chest, through your throat, through your face, helps to tone the vagal nerve, and it also helps to even tone your vocal cords in that area. So if you're someone who's needing to go speak your truth, or I like to do it before a podcast, I'll do the VOO exercise because it helps activate all the things in my vocal cords as well. Sounds a little silly, but I promise it feels so good. Okay, so we're going to do 3 separate breaths. I'm going to do 2 with you, and you guys can do 1 on your own. So take a deep inhale. For your exhale. And really feel all the vibration when you're allowing that VOO to come out. Janelle always instructs us to make it a steady VOO, but I find mine curving at the end sometimes. So do whatever feels best to you. Okay, take another deep inhale. And exhale. Okay, and I'm going to give you some silence so you can do 1 on your own. Take an inhale. And exhale. And just notice if there's any difference in your body, your breathing, in your nervous system. And like I said, you'll find them at the top of a lot of our deep imaginings. And I wanted to remind anyone, I got a lot of questions this week. It is not too late to join our challenge. Our challenges are completely self-facilitated. It's a 5-week challenge, but it's going to remain open until the end of the summer. So if you haven't started yet, you're wanting to start, now is the time to do it. We still have our sale going on for a limited time. So be sure to get in at the lowest rates of the season. Join the challenge. If you haven't heard of the challenge yet, this is your first time listening. We have a challenge going on about getting out of your own way, discovering the biggest block or limiting belief that is standing in the way of your life, your goals, your manifestations. And we're going to intentionally look at it from a nervous system standpoint, an inner child standpoint, reinforcing new belief standpoint. It's really powerful. The changes so far for people have been profound. People are manifesting. They feel so much better in their bodies, in their nervous systems. They're feeling more clear, more clarity, more grounded. People are able to process through stuck emotions that they haven't been able to sit with in a long time. So it's really, really, really powerful. And I'm excited to see what transpires for you guys on the other side. And if you need a little bit more expansion, we're going to share a member's testimonial story of what has been coming up for them during the challenge at the end. So be sure to stick around. Today's guest is a total manifestation come through. This is someone who has been on my dream guest list for so long. He is one of the leading researchers in hypnosis. He's physically studying the brains, putting it to practice, seeing real shifts happen through hypnosis. Dr. David Spiegel has more than 40 years of clinical research and experience studying psycho-oncology, stress, health, pain management, sleep hypnosis, and conducting randomized clinical trials involving psychotherapy for cancer patients. He's published 13 books, 404 scientific journal articles, 170 book chapters on hypnosis. You've likely seen him in all the top podcasts. He's been on Tim Ferriss, Rich Roll, Huberman, and he was so blown away by what he was finding in his research with self-hypnosis that he went on to co-found a company called Reverie, which is a self-hypnosis app. They have really short exercises to help you drop into the hypnotic state, whether that is in order to deal with pain management, overcome your fear of flying, to exercise stronger, deal with loss, sleep better, all these little micro improvements you can do by dropping in. He even has a code for us today. So if you guys want to check out their app, it's incredible. Really good supplement to do alongside the TBM work, especially if you're someone who struggles to drop into deep imaginings or you want to strengthen that muscle of your hypnotic ability. I highly, highly recommend it. It is incredible what he's seen with self-hypnosis and pain management and going into surgeries or any sort of physical feat, and how controlling the mind through the self-hypnosis can make that experience tenfold better. The power of our minds is absolutely wild. We are going to hear so much on it today. I'm so honored to have Dr. Spiegel on. If you are someone who was curious about hypnosis, what is going on with the brain when we drop into that hypnotic state, this episode is for you. It is chock full of wisdom. I'm so excited. Enjoy.
And now, a word from our partners.
So I'm sure you've heard the benefits of red light therapy. It can improve wound healing, reduce stretch marks, fine lines, wrinkles, age spots, improve facial texture, improve scarring, sun-damaged skin. And it really works by stimulating the mitochondria in our cells. When it does that, it helps stimulate the collagen production, giving our skin its structure, strength, elasticity, and improves fibroblast production, which helps create the collagen and all the connective tissue that builds our skin, increases blood circulation, reduces inflammation in cells. And two incredible products that I've been using lately, if you've followed me on Instagram, you've seen this crazy looking mask that I've had on, and it is the Bond Charge Red Light Face Mask. It is such an incredible product. It has red light and near infrared light directly positioned on top of your face. So you can just hook it on, put the Velcro in the back, and its little controller you can pop in your pocket and walk around and go about your day. You can do it while you're doing the dishes or your morning routine or meditating, and you just need it on for 10 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week minimum, to see those significant results. I notice the weeks that I am consistent with it, I can notice a more glowing skin texture. It brings color back to my face. It helps support some of those fine lines, especially around my eyes and my forehead. And it's just such an incredible beauty hack. They just released a brand new product to go along with it, the Red Light Neck and Chest Mask. So if you are someone that is looking down at their phone all the time, which I'm very guilty of, and you start to get those lines around your neck, or if you have any sun damage or wrinkles or lines on your chest, it covers that exact area. I also just love every product by Bond Charge because it is so science-backed. It is the lowest EMF you can possibly get, and it is the most effective and strongest wavelengths, the most optimal wavelengths that you can use in red light therapy. It truly is best in class and best in industry in face masks out there, and priced so well. Some other red light face masks out there are more than double in price. And you can get 15% off if you use code MAGNETIC. That's all caps MAGNETIC, and get 15% off your Bond Charge red light face mask or your Bond Charge red light neck and chest mask, or any other biohacking red light products from Bond Charge. Again, that's code MAGNETIC, all caps MAGNETIC, for 15% off. Check out the link in the show notes or go to bondcharge.com.
All right, on to the episode.
Today we have on, honestly, a really big expander for me, Dr. David Spiegel. One thing I want to kick off with, which I know you have not been asked in any other podcast, do you happen to know your sun, moon, or rising sign in astrology?
I'm a Sagittarian.
Okay. Do you see that interest for travel or newness or finding different revenues and different opportunities as something that you resonate with?
All of the above, yes.
I love it.
I do.
And what is your cultural background and upbringing, and how do you think it informed who you are today, what you're passionate about?
Well, in a lot of ways. My family is from Eastern Europe and Great Britain. My grandfather fled Ukraine a little more than 100 years ago because he was about to be drafted in the Russian army to fight in the Austro-Hungarian War, and he thought, if the Austro-Hungarians don't kill me, the Russians will. And so he fled anti-Semitism, which unfortunately remains a much bigger problem than we used to think, and wound up here in the United States. And my family assimilated. So I'm third generation American, but from Eastern European background.
And so you also come from a long lineage of doctors and psychologists. How has your parents' roles and positions informed your work and led you to that work?
Had no effect at all. No, both my mother and my father were psychiatrists and psychoanalysts. And they used to tell me that I was free to be any kind of psychiatrist I wanted to be. So here I am. The dinner table conversations were pretty interesting. They'd talk about patients. My father did a lot of work in hypnosis. He didn't start out that way, but when he was finishing his training analysis, he was enlisted to fight in North Africa in World War II. And a Viennese physician named Gustav von Aschaffenburg had just escaped from the Nazis, came here, wanted to serve in the military, couldn't. But he was a forensic psychiatrist who had a smallpox scar right in the middle of his forehead. And he noticed that when he was interviewing prisoners, they would sometimes just kind of nod off and act differently. And he realized that they were being hypnotized. So he started learning about it. And then he taught young army docs to use hypnosis for pain control, for dealing with combat stress reactions. And my father came back from the war and went back to being an analyst again. But he had a very wonderful supervisor named Frieda Fromm-Reichmann, a famous woman analyst, who said, "Why are you going to stop doing hypnosis?" And he said, "Well, Freud gave it up, and who am I to carry it on?" And she said, "What are you so worried about your reputation for? You're going to teach a course in the Institute on hypnosis, and I know you're going to do it because I'm going to take it." And so he kept doing it. And over time, he had a penchant. I don't think he wasn't a Sagittarian. He was born in late June, but he had a curiosity about what happened to his patients. So he would follow up, and he found that some of his best results came from the few times he did hypnosis with patients rather than 3 or 4 days a week on the couch. And so he gradually shifted over more of his practice to that. And I got to watch him make videos of patients he was treating and things like that. I tried to be everything else. I thought I'd be a surgeon, but I wound up just being more interested in what went on above the neck.
And you have so much research and kind of data on the neuroimaging and brain scans and everything that's going on. Break it down for us. Like, what is happening when we're in a hypnotic state, when you're able to really drop in? And I know there's different variables of who can drop in deeper and are more likely to drop in deeper, but what is happening in the brain down there?
We were deeply interested in that, and we've done studies with EEG and with functional magnetic resonance imaging and PET scans. It was convincing to me before I started that something is happening in the brain that literally changes the way people perceive things. It's not that they don't let it bother them so much, it's that they change what they perceive. And so we did EEG studies showing that if you give people an instruction that they will feel less, that they can filter the hurt out of the pain, that they reduce the evoked response to the pain signals if you're giving them shocks. The first response, which is at a tenth of a second afterwards, just disappears. And the 300 millisecond response was half as big. So we were literally changing the way the brain reacted. We did PET next, and we looked at positron emission tomography, which can look at not just blood flow, but neurochemicals in the brain. And this one we did with visual stimuli. So we had people look at a colored grid that was like a Mondrian painting. And we said, look at that grid. And there were all kinds of bright colors in these blocks. And we said, I want you to imagine that you can drain the color out of them and that they're just black, white, and gray. And these highly hypnotizable subjects did that. They said, yeah, it just looks gray. And then we had them do the reverse. We said, look at black, white, and gray grids and make them colorful. And they would see it as colorful. And we saw that in the back part of the brain, in the lingual and fusiform gyri, when they were draining color out, they reduced blood flow in the parts of the grid that had color. And when they were adding color, they increased blood flow in those parts of the brain. Their brain was telling us, I'm seeing color, I'm seeing black and white, but they're looking at the same thing. So I call that my believing is seeing experiment. You believe it, you see it. And so we then went on to use functional magnetic resonance imaging, which has the advantage of being anatomically very precise and also showing you the ways in which different brains act together or not. And what we saw using functional MRI is, first of all, that highly hypnotizable people had coordination between the executive control network, the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and a crucial part of the brain called the dorsal anterior cingulate. The cingulate cortex is like this inverted C in the center, in the middle of your brain. And the front part of it is an alarm system. We call it part of the salience network. When you hear a loud noise and your attention gets shifted away, or when somebody on social media sends a post saying that there are 40 girls out here who are better looking than you are, it'll distract you and keep you from concentrating. Highly hypnotizable people coordinate activity between those two regions. So what they're thinking about and whether they're worried about anything else are coordinated so that they can focus their attention. And so then the next step was we took a group of high and low hypnotizable subjects, put them in the scanner, and had them do hypnotic and non-hypnotic tasks. And the thing that typified the hypnotic task only for the high hypnotizables was turning down activity in the dorsal part of the anterior cingulate. So you were literally turning off the alarm system. You were saying, don't pay much attention to it. Focus on what you want to focus on. So that helps to explain how hypnosis is like looking through a telephoto lens in a camera. What you see with great detail, but you're just less aware of the periphery. The second part is dissociation. You put outside of awareness things that would be inside. You've turned down the salience network, the dorsal anterior cingulate. You're not distracted or bothered by other things. Now, we all do that to some extent. Right now, Jessica, you have sensations in your body touching the chair you're sitting in, but hopefully you weren't even aware of it until I mentioned it. So we do that naturally, and that has to do with another thing that we found, which is inverse functional connectivity between the executive control region and the front part of the brain, the executive control network, and the default mode network. It's a part of the brain, the posterior cingulate cortex, that's involved in rumination. It's when you're just sitting there not doing much, you're thinking about who you are and what people think of you and what you should be doing and what they expect of you. That's the default mode network. And the more engaged you are in the hypnotic state, the less activity you have in the default mode network. And that has a lot to do with, I think, what the kind of thing that you're working toward and that we are, which is it lets you try out being someone different. Before you figured out why you are the way you are, before you figured out whether that's a good or a bad idea or not, you have cognitive flexibility in hypnosis where you can just say, let me see what it's like, see what it feels like. So that can be used by stage hypnotists to make a fool out of somebody, like the football coach dancing like a ballerina. But it can also be used by you to say, what if in my desire to stop smoking, instead of focusing on my urge to smoke or my nicotine dependence, I think of my body as if it were my baby, that it has to take into it anything I put into it, even if it's damaged by it. Would I ever put tar and nicotine smoke into my baby's lungs? Hell no. So you can just be a different kind of person who focuses not on what they think they need, but on what your body that depends on you for survival needs in order to survive. And so you can just shift your perspective on who you are and what you're doing. And in the same way, you can handle stress by calming your body first and then figuring out the stressor rather than the other way around, because you get a kind of snowball effect of physical tension and mental tension that reinforce one another. And it makes it very hard to deal with the stressor because you're also dealing with the effects the stressor has on your body that upset you. So do something about the thing you can do something about. So the final thing is, and this gets to the body part, we find more functional connectivity between the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the insula. That's another part of the salience network connected to the anterior cingulate, but it's a mind-body conduit. It's right smack in the middle of the front of the brain. And it's a way in which the brain controls the body, but the brain also reads the body. It gets interoception from the body. That's a crucial pathway that allows the brain in hypnosis to better control what's going on in the body. So turn down activity in the salience network, increase control over the body, and disconnect what you're doing from the part of your brain that is sitting there judging and saying, why are you doing that? You shouldn't do that. You can't do that. So that's what we think hypnosis is all about.
I mean, I have 1,000,001 questions off of this. It's just so miraculous and so interesting. The first part is, with that first element, is that sort of this wiring to safety? You know, when I think about someone who has to like come back to an inner sense of safety, because you have to have a certain sense of safety to renegotiate those difficulties or traumas or whatever's coming up, or face that fear of flying or whatever you're working through. It's like creating that internal sense of safety so you're not hyper vigilant to the world around you.
I think that's a very good point. If you think about it, Jessica, we're pretty pathetic physical specimens. You know, there are animals that run faster than us, that smell better, that see better, that hear better. And so one of the things that has enabled us to evolve and survive throughout history has been our ability to modulate our perception, our concerns. If you panic and start squirming around, you're going to attract the attention of predators. So it's actually a survival value to be able to say, yes, I know I have a bad cut on my leg, but I'm not going to move. And I'm not going to let the pain interfere with my escape plan from what I have to do. It helps you be a better nurturer of children. You can put aside your own concerns and take better care of them. And human infants are the most dependent of any creature after birth, and they need our protection to survive. So our capacity to modulate our discomfort, modulate pain, modulate our behavior has survival value for ourselves and for our offspring. And so I think you're absolutely right that this ability to pay attention to what you want to pay attention to and not to what you don't is absolutely critical. I treated a woman who was in the World Trade Center when it was attacked. And she was angry at herself because she said, you know, I was going down the stairs. I was scared to death. I told myself, if you just get to the lobby, you'll survive, you'll be alive. And she said, so I got down to the lobby and the other building collapsed. And I got blown through a plate glass window and out of the building. And she said, I was upset with myself because I had misled myself. And I said, you didn't mislead yourself. You led yourself out of the building. You survived because of that. When you're in the middle of a terrible trauma, the last thing you want is the big picture. You want to know what you need to do to survive and nothing else. And you did that, and that's why you survived. So this capacity to focus on what's important and put outside of conscious awareness things that aren't, I think has tremendous survival value. And it's one reason that hypnosis is a naturally occurring, very important cognitive and emotional process that people like you and me are trying to use to help people make better decisions in life and live better.
So would you say for that person that an element of the hypnotic state was at play there because she was like in that very focused, hyper-aware moment?
That's exactly right.
Interesting.
And, you know, when you talk to people who have won medals in combat for doing heroic things, they say, I didn't think it was heroic. I just had to save my friend, you know, and I just did it. And that's all I cared about. And that, to me, is a hypnotic-like state. People do things like that, and later on, they wonder at it. They wonder how they did it or what they did. But at the time, they're just so focused on one thing. That's the only thing that matters. And a lot of times, that has survival value for people. So, Yeah, I think this is a natural, not an unnatural state. And the other thing that's natural about it is if you have kids, Jessica, do you have kids? Do you have young kids?
Not yet,
Yeah, not yet.
just a puppy, but the maternal instincts are coming.
I'm here to warn you. It's tremendous fun. But if you have an 8-year-old kid and you call him in for dinner, he doesn't hear you, right? He's out playing with his friends. The peak period of hypnotizability in the human life cycle is the latency years in childhood. All 8-year-olds are in trances all the time. Work and play are all the same thing. They get totally immersed in what they're doing. It's a wonderful time of life. We shouldn't try to make them into little adults. We should let them enjoy it. And some of us lose some of that ability as we grow up, but it becomes a very stable trait starting in your 20s. It's as stable as IQ by then. So it's a special, wonderful kind of capacity we have that we ought to do more to cultivate and use.
There's a graphic going around on Instagram saying how you can create more new neural pathways in a state of play than you can sitting down and trying to do something. Is that because play induces that hypnotic state?
I think so. I think it's intensity. So we know a lot more now about neuroplasticity. We know that neurons that fire together wire together. Long-term potentiation, so a circuit keeps firing and it tends to get consolidated, whereas there's long-term depression where circuits that aren't used tend to break down. And one of the reasons we need so much sleep at night is that we sort of do housekeeping and clean up neural connections that we don't need anymore. And if you think about it, if we kept just building connections, our brain would outgrow our skull. You can't do that. It is, I think, the case that hypnosis can help in particular because it will help you with novelty, cognitive flexibility. It will help you engage intensely in something. It helps you change behavior, be different. And so that helps you to potentially build new neural pathways and do things differently. And the brain is far less static once you become an adult than we used to think. And so any state of mind that can help you not just do things intensely, but also change things rapidly is likely to help you become more neurally plastic, deal with old problems in new ways.
And then just going back to the default mode network for a second, one of the things that comes to mind is like releasing that rigidity and openness. And I think that's even one of the pillars you have of like absorption. Is someone who has like a lower default mode network activity going to be more open to absorption, open to taking things in, open to new information, new ways of belief?
I think that's true. The more we learn about the default mode, the more we see it as both a kind of persistent set of assumptions about who you are, what you can be, and also a set of assumptions about what society expects of you or thinks of you. Part of the default mode is social evaluation. Humans have a horrifying history of just awful, stupid social assumptions of things you have to and must do. Some of them are useful and some of them, frankly, are not. But the capacity to say, what would it be like if I were different, if this pain doesn't stop me from doing other things that I want to do? What would it be like if I could reconceptualize a horrible traumatic experience I'd been through as something that was not really my fault? If I could, on the one hand, experience my helplessness when it happened, on the other hand, recognize that I'm not to blame for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That can really change people. I've seen it change people, and it does it in a hurry. It's not something that you have to take years approaching and reapproaching. So this brain ability to just alter your perception of what's going on, how your body feels, control your body differently and better, I think has tremendous potential for helping us live better.
The other thing that's so appealing to it is how quickly you can induce into the state. I mean, you guys have some of in the Reverie app, you have some that you can drop into in 1 minute.
That's right.
I think that in and of itself is really fascinating. And I also am curious about, because everything is happening, all of these elements are happening in the brain, does that make it more effective and faster than, let's say, someone sitting there and saying in a non-hypnotic state an affirmation, or sitting there in a non-hypnotic state and saying, I hope I don't smoke today, versus dropping into the state, allowing those different brain patterns to come up and then trying to change the behavior?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think the answer is absolutely yes, Jessica, that it's because you're focusing attention. I mean, think about the times when you've really learned something well in a hurry. They're not times where you're saying, oh, it's 10 o'clock, I got to start doing this. It was a time when you just got into something that, wow, this is fascinating. And you got fully absorbed in it. And you just put outside of awareness either mental distractions, like I should be cleaning my closet or something, but also conceptual distractions. But things aren't supposed to be like this. But you're saying, but look, this is the way it appears to me now. And that sense of excitement and engagement and absorption is a tremendous learning advantage. And I think that's something that can happen better and more intensely in a state of hypnosis. We talk about it, their everyday experience is highway hypnosis. You realize that you've gotten home, but you don't remember turning off the freeway and getting on the street in that street. You obviously drove okay. So because you're engaged in something else. And that intensity of engagement, Csikszentmihalyi calls it a flow state, where it's autotelic. You do it just because it feels good to do it. You're enjoying it. And at our best, we're like that. We enjoy learning new things. We enjoy putting together things in a way we hadn't thought of before. And it's exciting and encouraging to be able to see yourself doing things you didn't think you could do. And that is a tremendous way of learning and changing. And that's something that I wish people made more good use of, because it's not something weird. You don't have to go to sleep. This old idea that you've got to watch a dangling watch, and it's just nonsense. If you've got the ability, you can get there right away. And that's what Reverie helps people to do.
And then the last piece, the mind-body connection, that it is helping to blend between the two. You've seen some miraculous health dynamics unfold through the hypnotic state. What are some other things you see going on there? I feel like that's such a untapped wealth of knowledge that it's starting to come to the surface, and your work is really bringing to the surface now. But I feel like we have a massive drug industry, and it's understandable why people might not want everyone to know this. But
oh, gee, I hadn't noticed that. Well, there are a couple things. For pain, certainly, it is remarkable for pain, and it is so overlooked. People they don't believe that just fixing something in your head can actually fix it in your body. People tend to think of good medical care as like fixing a broken car. Identify the broken part and replace it. Incision, injection, or ingestion. And there's this huge industry, pharma, that makes a ton of money telling people they have to have drugs to get better. I'm a physician. I prescribe medications. I'm not against medication, but the right place at the right time. And you look at chronic pain as a perfect example where, opioids are analgesics. There's no question that as herbal things originally and as medications, they do help people reduce pain for sure. But they're terrible for chronic pain. You get dependent on them. And pharma made sure that I was taught in medical school that people who use opioids for pain don't get addicted. The opposite is true, because you get removal hyperalgesia. The pain gets even worse if you've been on it for a while, and then you try to get off the opioids. And that's how people got hooked. Last year, 82,000 Americans died of opioid overdoses. 300,000 in the last 10 years. The CDC is expecting 111,000 to die this coming year. It is just plain horrifying. And so when people say hypnosis is dangerous, hypnosis has not succeeded in killing anybody that I know of ever. And yet, we have patients who do extremely well. I have women with metastatic breast cancer who I've met with in support groups for years at a time. At the end of each group, I teach them self-hypnosis to learn to filter the hurt out of the pain. You may know there's a sensation there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your cancer is getting worse. It just means that it's a sensation you can manage. And we found in a randomized clinical trial that at the end of a year, the women who were taught this once a week in an emotional support group had half the pain that the women in the control condition, which was standard care, did on the same and very low amounts of medication. We've done randomized trial in acute surgery, people having arterial cut downs, where you put a catheter in through the femoral artery, you do chemoembolization in the liver, you remount arterial constriction. It takes about 2.5 hours. It's painful, it's anxiety provoking. And we randomized 241 subjects into 3 conditions. One was standard care, which meant press a button, give yourself opioids. The second was that plus a friendly nurse being sympathetic and providing emotional support. And the third was training in self-hypnosis. At the end of an hour and a half, the standard care group's pain level was 5 out of 10. The ones with the friendly nurse was 3 out of 10. The hypnosis group was 1 out of 10.
Wow.
We looked at the anxiety scores. The anxiety was 6 out of 10 for the standard care, 3 out of 10 for the nursing group, and 0 in the hypnosis group. None of them were anxious. I thought they died or something. They were just fine. And get this, the ones in the standard care group were using twice as much opioid as the ones in the other group. And they had more procedural complications, the cardiovascular abnormalities and things like that. And the ones in the hypnosis group got done 17 minutes faster on average. Because not only were they more comfortable, but the treating staff was more comfortable. We're not making them suffer. They're doing fine. So they got done quicker. Now, that was published in The Lancet, which is a leading British medical journal. Randomized clinical trial, 241 subjects, 3-arm study, shows this effect. If that were a drug, everybody in the country would be using that drug now. But it was hypnosis. So people just don't believe that that can happen. And I think that's tragic. It absolutely works, but it is absolutely not taken seriously enough. And that's why I created Reverie. I just thought I want to get it to people, even if it doesn't become a standard part of medical care, although many good doctors use it. I want to be sure it's as available as possible. So for pain, for sure, and you look at this, the Supreme Court now is hearing a case on Purdue Pharma because they're paying for damages and deaths of many, many thousands of people who died because they got addicted to opioids and then got some opioid laced with fentanyl on the street and just stopped breathing. Opioids inhibit respiration, and people think they need more, and they just go to sleep and don't wake up. The wonderful guitarist, singer Prince died for that reason. He had been injured in many of his performances. He was using opioids, and he just took too much and didn't wake up in the morning. It's horrifying. So you have treatments that do terrible harm to people that are still very widely used, and pharma markets them as though it's cool for people with good health insurance to get these opioids, and yet we're not taking full advantage of this 3-pound organ at the top of our bodies that is a remarkable control system for things like pain, and where people can very quickly and easily learn to control pain without risking their lives doing it.
Are you looking for a high-quality, clean toothpaste that's sustainable, free of plastic, and actually works? Check out Bite Toothpaste Bits. They are my absolute favorite toothpaste that I've been using for years. They come in a glass jar that lasts 4 months, and you get a little refillable package if you do the subscription model every month to refill it. So that means it's completely sustainable. You're not throwing out a little tube of plastic toothpaste every single month. In fact, the founder built the company based on the fact that she was seeing so much plastic in the ocean when she went out surfing. As she was on this journey for cleaner ways to do toothpaste in a more sustainable method, she found that when you remove the water from toothpaste, not making it paste, but making it a tiny pressed bit, you're able to remove so many of the harsh chemicals that are in most of the toothpaste on the market. No palm oil, SLS, artificial flavors, sulfates, parabens, microplastics, artificial preservatives, sweeteners, dyes, all the things that we don't want in anything we're ingesting or having touch our microbiome. The other thing I absolutely love about Bite is that their fluoride-free version has nanohydroxypate. This is a natural alternative to fluoride. So if you are someone who is really mindful about cavities or prone to cavities, but you don't want to use fluoride, this is going to be your new best friend. Nanohydroxypate is the same material that tooth enamel, dentine, and bones are primarily made of, which means it is biocompatible with your teeth. It helps to remineralize your teeth and effectively reduce tooth decay. It also helps tooth sensitivity and periodontal health. And even though I haven't been the greatest about going to get my teeth cleanings, I have had a clean bill of teeth health with no cavities to be seen. The other thing I really love about Bite is because you're not bringing a tube of toothpaste, you don't have to worry about traveling. You can just throw it in your bag, travel easily, get through security, put it in your check luggage. You don't have to worry about buying a travel size item. You can just take it with you on the go with ease. So if you are interested in trying out Bite's toothpaste bits, you can use the code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, for 20% off your first order. Again, that is code MAGNETIC, MAGNETIC, for 20% off. You can go to trybite.com/magnetic or check the link in our show notes. What do you, this is more of like a esoteric spiritual question here, but what do you make of the fact that our brains are so powerful that we actually, through understanding this process, can induce this state of hypnosis to change our brains, to sort of manipulate our physical responses to things, to lower the pain threshold? What do you think of that as you're discovering this through these trials over the years?
I think it's very cool. I think I like the sense of awe in your question, Jessica, because it's an undervalued resource. We just have come to rely so much on technology and doing things to our bodies and doing things to ourselves that we have undervalued our own abilities to manage things. And there's a common misunderstanding in medicine, too, that if you can control pain that way, it's not real pain. You don't really have pain. You just think you do. And that could not be more wrong. That is, pain is a combination of physical damage when it's there and the interpretation you make of that physical damage. There are athletes who break an ankle in a football game, and they don't even notice till they hobble off the field and the coach says, your ankle's swollen. What the hell happened? So we underestimate consistently, and we do that with a lot of things. You can think of automobiles. We all act a lot of the time. We have to have an external expensive machine. Now, there are times when to get somewhere you need a car, but not all the time. And the number of people who drive around a parking lot at a store looking for a space that's 20 feet closer to the store, we immobilize ourselves. We over-rely on expensive external technology rather than on utilizing the resources that we've got in our heads and in our bodies.
This brings me to the concept of helplessness. I heard you talk about this on a few other podcasts, but this idea that we're so terrified of this helplessness. And in a way, because we're not trusting our brain and our brain's potential to heal itself, to take us on that journey, we're creating more control, which actually creates a bit more helplessness in a way, because we're not allowing and we're not open to the possibility of something more. Talk a bit about that.
Oh, well, that's a very good point, that we're sort of inhibiting ourselves. We're not exploring, recognizing, and utilizing the resources we're carrying around inside us. So I'm condemned to be in pain if I can't get a doctor to write me another opioid prescription. We've discovered using functional magnetic resonance spectroscopy that highly hypnotizable people in the dorsal anterior cingulate have a much higher level of GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's what is stimulated by benzodiazepines, by the typical anti-anxiety drugs. So particularly hypnotizable people have their own little internal pharmacy here. And so you can just stimulate the secretion of more inhibition and reduce the amount of distress and discomfort that whatever it is that's stressing you causes. So we look outside, we kind of turn over our power and ability to external sources that we have to pay money to get help. Now, sometimes that's the right thing to do. I'm not saying don't go see a doctor, don't take a medication. I'm just saying that we overdo it in the externalizing way of saying the only answer I have that's going to work is something that comes from somewhere else or in a package or a bottle and from a professional. And often that's the case, but often it isn't. And I think you're exactly right, Jessica, that we immobilize ourselves. We don't take full advantage of resources that are walking around between our ears.
Talk about the brain styles for hypnosis.
So we have a test on Reverie. It's this hypnotic induction profile. I've used it with virtually every one of the 7,000 people I've used hypnosis with.
And I have to share it. I think our audience is the diplomat and the poet, because we do have a lot of very imaginative. Okay. And I took the styles quiz and I got the poet. So
there you go. Okay. You're the kind of person who gets so caught up in a good movie or a novel that you forget you're watching the movie.
Immersed. Yeah.
That's a wonderful ability. It's not effortful at all, right? You're just in it and you can soak it up and be a part of it and think of different ways about it. That's wonderful. And it's a different way of thinking about hypnosis, because in the past, if people didn't go into a hypnotic state, they would get blamed for it. They'd say, you're resisting, you're fighting it, your unconscious doesn't want to let. That's not it at all. It's an ability, and it's a very stable trait. And what I do is I find out what their style of responding is and then work with that style. And it saves a lot of time. The test on Reverie takes 6 minutes, same as in my office. And you can classify yourself, as you mentioned, in one of three types. The poet is the person who privileges experience and feeling, who says, if this feels right, I'm going with it. I can enjoy it, immerse myself in it, take it in, and just try it on for size and see what it feels like. And that can be very pleasurable. Sometimes you may take in something that in retrospect you say, well, I don't know if that was the best thing, but at the time you loved it and you learned it and you got close to it and you felt it. The diplomat is someone who's more in the mid-range. So about 15 to 20% of people are like you, poets. About 50% are diplomats. They have episodes like that, but it doesn't happen all the time. So they'll get immersed and then they'll think, wait a minute, does that really make sense? Why would I do that? Can I really reduce my pain that much? Do I believe that I actually was very comfortable with the same arthritis or the same cancer pain or whatever it is as I was before? And so you have the experience and then you judge it. You kind of shift back and forth between allowing yourself to feel it and thinking about what it means. And then on the bottom end are people we call the researchers. They're people who privilege cognition above feeling, who like to think things out and get them rationally understood. And they tend to be less hypnotizable. But we had a Reverie user who wanted to stop smoking. The first time she couldn't really do it. But then she thought, I like this approach of thinking of my body as if it were a baby. I would never do to my baby what I'm doing to my body. And it's as dependent on me as my baby is. We had one Reverie user who the first time, and this is typical of highly hypnotizable people, just love it from the get-go. She said, I don't really like the way you put that to me. I've been smoking for 25 years. I don't really want to stop anyway. But she went home that night and she tried it again. She lit up a cigarette. She looked at it. She said, who needs this? And she put it out and she hasn't had a cigarette since. And she said to me, Spiegel, this is some kind of crazy ass voodoo shit. And I mean that in a good way. She said, because she's shocked. And that's one of the greatest things about it. People are surprised. I love that element of surprise. My God, I could do that. That means they're letting go of this old view of who they are and what they are in that default mode network and are saying, I'll see what it's like to be like this. Her friends can't believe it. She's stopping her friends from smoking. She hasn't even wanted to have a cigarette since then. Does it happen with everyone? No, but we're finding that 1 out of 5 people using Reverie to stop smoking will stop completely, which is about as good as you get with the medications varenicline and bupropion that are used for smoking. And even more interesting, and I hadn't expected this, the ones who continue to smoke are smoking about half as many cigarettes per day as they did before. It is remarkable how people can change and surprise themselves at their ability to change. And that, I think, is something that is relatively unique to these hypnotic kinds of approaches, where you're shifting gears. You're just trying out being a different person and seeing what you can do. And sometimes you surprise yourself.
For the person who might be in that researcher category that might be a little resistant, a little critical, kind of have their guard up a bit, is it that they need to feel safe to buy in a bit more? Is it maybe their learning style is like, let me learn all the science about it, and then maybe I can let my guard down a little more?
Well, I think you've described very accurately what their process is like. That's what they do. Will they ever get to the poet level of just saying, oh, I get it, I'm in it, goodbye? No. But what we do is trance and treatment. There's the focus, the intensity of focus, but then there's what you're focusing on. People who use hypnosis are fond of saying the worst thing you can tell somebody is don't think about purple elephants. What are you going to think about? So instead, you teach people to focus on what they're for. So you have more of a discussion. You say, think about your body. It really is as dependent on you as anything else. I just had a guy who used Reverie for airplane phobia, and he was fighting the plane. He'd get in the plane, he'd get so tense, he'd feel the plane move, he'd freak out, he'd fight it more. He said, I remember you told me 3 things, and one was to float with the plane. So you buckle yourself in, and you enjoy the movement that you would a roller coaster when you were a kid. Just feel the movement and enjoy the movement. The second thing is, instead of feeling helpless about what's going on, you think of the plane as an extension of your body. If you want to get from one place to another, you can walk. If you want to get there faster, you can take a bicycle. So the bicycle is an extension of your body that lets you do things you couldn't otherwise do without it. The pilot is an extension of your mind and your hands. He has been designated by you as the person who controls the airplane. So you're not helpless in the plane. You've made a choice of a reasonably responsible airline that hires good pilots. And so the plane is an extension of your body. And the third thing he said I found myself thinking about was the difference between a possibility and a probability. It's always possible the plane will crash. But flying airplanes per mile is a hell of a lot safer than driving a car. If you're worried about getting killed, don't get in a car. He said, so the fact that I can visualize this image of the plane going down very vividly doesn't mean it's at all likely to happen. And so he said, I found myself thinking about those three concepts, and I'm able to fly again. I wasn't able to before, and I can now. So it wasn't like automatic and easy for him. He had to think it through, but the concepts made sense. And so he partly felt better physically because he wasn't fighting the plane so much, but he partly also just got with the idea that he was still in control, even though he was in this tin can at 35,000 feet.
It makes me think too about this idea of time expansion and spaciousness. Is there something going on during the hypnotic state that allows the sensation of time to feel like it extends a bit more? Because I know before I go into a hypnosis, if I'm overwhelmed or feeling frantic or anxious, it feels like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time in the day. What do I do? And then I sit down for hypnosis and it's like, oh, I see how I can get that done and that done and that done, and we're all good. Is there anything going on in the brain there that's allowing that to expand a bit more?
In part, it has to do with the dissociative properties of hypnosis. Part of what we do is time monitoring, and that changes a lot. Have you noticed how if you're totally engaged in something and loving it, like a movie or something, you don't even notice time passing. You don't worry about monitoring time because you're not monitoring it. You're just putting that outside of awareness. On the other hand, if you're doing something really boring and repetitive, an hour can seem an infinity. So part of the dispersion of attention tends to include time monitoring and remembering, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, just what you were saying. But as you get absorbed and focused, your brain resources are not being used for that. They're being used to just lose yourself in what it is that you're doing.
And then what about hypnosis for endurance tools for focus? Because I know now a lot of people are having a lot of distractibility, especially with social media, with apps solely designed to keep us in this scroll-focused state. How can we utilize hypnosis to help us recenter and refocus?
Well, it's a very good point. As I was mentioning, a lot of the tricks that social media use are trying to ping your salience network, hit you in areas where you might feel vulnerable or scared or morbidly curious about something. And the way to do it, again, don't think about social media as not a good strategy because that's what you're going to start thinking about. But instead, if you can say, I've been really curious about what's going on in this novel or what I can do, taking a walk in a place that I hadn't been to before that I really want to go to. So, you use the carrot, not the stick. Allow yourself to focus in on how much you're going to enjoy and benefit from some activity you lose yourself in. And then you just wouldn't want to stop and start scrolling because you're really engaged in what you're doing. So it should be an attraction, not a pressure to do it. And you can use hypnosis. I tell people to do this all the time, to focus, find your focus. If you've got 3 hours ahead and you've got to decide how to spend it, go into a state of self-hypnosis for a couple of minutes and picture what you want to do and in what order you want to do it. And picture what you'll get from it and what you'll learn from it and how you'll help somebody by doing something you promised them you'd do, whatever it is. And if you just set that up as a sort of self-expectation and a program, you'll be surprised to find yourself doing it. And so it's a matter of lining them up in your focus and knocking them off because you're enjoying doing it, not because you're forcing yourself to do it.
Kind of like the method of being pulled to something versus pushing your way in that way.
That's exactly right.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the magnetic self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the daily practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest.
And we have our big summer sale going on right now where you can save $96 off of your membership. Be sure to check the link in the show notes or go to our website, tobemagnetic.com, to check out the sale.
Now back to the episode.
Talk a little bit about, sort of the pillars that you had on judging the brain styles, like being receptive, open-minded, imaginative, critical thinker, absorption, analytical. Are all of those elements a part of the hypnosis process? Like, how do you see them factoring in?
Some are sort of more uniquely hypnotic than others. So the poets, absorption is a big factor. They lose themselves in a sunset. I had to get up early this morning. There were some beautiful orange clouds. I climbed up to the roof of my home and spent 5 minutes just enjoying the colors. And I knew I had other things I'd better do, but I just didn't want to miss it. So you can just allow yourself to get into things that you want to, and that the more you kind of cue them up, the more you're likely to do it. Diplomats, it's always more of a negotiation. I really want to do this, but I ought to do that. And so you can maybe make a compromise with yourself and say, I get to do this if I get that done. So I'll do this first. No, I got it done. Check it off my list, and then lose myself in the next thing. For the researchers, it tends to be more of a tough negotiation and trade-off. It makes the most rational sense that I do this first because there's a deadline coming up and I don't want to miss it. And then I'll allow myself, if I get that done, to do this that makes me feel better, and that one to do that, and so on. So it's more step by step. It's less losing yourself in it and more organizing yourself into it. And that's what researchers can do, and can do that very well. When they make an agreement to do it, they usually do it. They don't get distracted. They do it.
And then talk a little bit about how we can maybe enhance or support our brains as it's forming these new neural pathways and enhancing neuroplasticity.
It's like learning a physical skill as well. You practice at it, you'll get better at it. You learn as a kid how to ride a bicycle, you got to get a certain amount of momentum, and then you can do it. It's the same with a mental skill, that the more you do it, the more likely you are to be able to do it and do it well. Getting to sleep or getting back to sleep is a good example, where anytime you're having trouble sleeping, and this is a good point, it has to do with sleep hygiene too. You don't want to make your efforts to get to sleep be so frantic that you wake yourself up. And you want your bedroom to be a place of pleasure and sleep, and that's it. You don't want it to be a place of struggle. It's why we advise people don't be able to see a clock when you wake up in the middle of the night, because all you're going to do is wake yourself up more by saying, oh my God, it's 3:00 in the morning. What am I going to do? And so what I encourage people to do is make hypnosis the first resort, not the last resort. So you wake up, say, oh, I'm awake. I'm going to get myself feeling physically comfortable. I'm going to picture myself in a place where my body feels completely relaxed, in a hot tub, a bath, a lake, floating in space. And I'm just going to go back to inhaling quickly, slowly exhaling, and let my body float. So your go-to position is to do the hypnosis first. And very often you'll wake up the next morning and wonder what happened. That's the thing to do. You want to train your brain to go to the things that help it trigger the parasympathetic relaxation response first, rather than go through a bunch of struggles and then finally get to that. So the more you can train yourself to do it automatically, the better.
That's really fascinating. So everyone thinking about, okay, I have to get up in the morning and, go for a run and do this. If the first thing you can do is even taking 1 minute or 5 minutes to get into that calm hypnotic state, then everything else you do for the rest of the day is kind of set up from there.
That's exactly right. You can just program your day in a very pleasant way. Get your body floating, picture the path you're going to follow during the day and how good you're going to feel as you do it and when you're done with it. And you're more likely to do that. You're programming your brain to do it.
What are some of your favorite hypnosis audios on Reverie? And tell us a little bit about the app.
Well, the app, you can download it from the App Store if you have an iOS phone or from Google Play if you have an Android. You can try out seeing what kind of a hypnotic subject you are. And then you have a list of things that you can choose from. So hypnosis, we do it as a way of solving problems. I'm not trying to create a horde of people who are hypnotized all the time. What I am trying to do is have people have a toolkit that they can use. So you choose, is your number one problem getting to sleep? Is it stress management? Is it focus? Is it performance anxiety? Is it eating better, stopping smoking or stopping vaping? So you can then choose one of them and do the app. You can try it right away. And as you mentioned, we have some sort of refreshers that are little 1-minute exercises, but most of them are between 9 and 13 minutes, and they can be interactive. So I can ask you questions while we're doing it. Depending on your answer, you'll get a different response from me about what to do next. And so you can interact with me, or you can just hear an uninterrupted 8 or 9 minutes of hypnosis, but very quickly go into the hypnotic state, address the problem you want to address, come out of it and deal with it. And so it's meant to be a problem-solving tool throughout the day that has the added side effect of making you feel really good.
What brain style are you?
I'm a diplomat on the high side, on the poet side. I'm not extremely hypnotizable, but I'm pretty good. I had surgery done. I had a recurrent dislocating shoulder. I had to have major surgery to rebuild it. And I had general anesthesia for the 3-hour operation. But afterwards, I wasn't taking the pain meds. I was just doing self-hypnosis. And I was very comfortable. I interpreted the pain feelings as my shoulder healing, when it was going to be better and I wasn't going to have to worry about dislocating it again. And I went and read my chart. I was at Mass General. I was working there. So I went and read my record, and it said, patient using very little pain meds, we mustn't have cut many nerves. I use it. Actually, I have fun with it sometimes. I was doing terribly at learning water skiing. I kept planting my face in the ocean every time I tried to do it. And I realized that I was tensing up and doing exactly the wrong things. I was stiffening my legs, which meant they weren't flexible. And I was pulling with my arms to kind of protect myself from being pulled too much. And I just hypnotized myself and said, arms straight, knees bent, arms straight, knees bent. And you know what? I didn't fall down anymore. I got it. So I was just programming my body to do the right thing, and it did it. Every once in a while, my body listens to me, and that was one of those occasions.
What is your hope for hypnosis in the world and the impact on people?
My hope is that this is a resource that millions of people will find themselves using. It's very important to have well-trained professionals to do it. It's important for people to have access to them, but a lot of things people can do for themselves. And it's a widely available resource because it's between your ears. It's right there. And I want as many people as possible to be able to use it, to control pain, to manage stress, to reduce anxiety, to get to sleep, to get back to sleep, to quit bad habits. It works. I've seen it work for thousands of people. And we're finding with Reverie now that 3 out of 4 people feel better the first session they use it. They feel less stress. They feel less pain. And so it's such a naturally available, terrific tool that I just want anyone who wants it to have it. And I'm trying to get it as widely disseminated as possible because I know people can help themselves more effectively than they have been. And I know how to help them do it, and I want them to do it. So I hope people will take full advantage of it.
Thank you so much for your time and honestly for all of the work that you've done and the research and everything that has gone into it. And think of all the millions of people that are positively impacted by you taking that journey.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Thanks for your understanding and appreciation of it and the work that you're doing too with hypnosis. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you. And I hope people will benefit from what both of us are doing.
Thank you so much. And if you guys want to test out Reverie, you can use the discount code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, and receive 20% off. You can still get your 7-day free trial, but you can also get 20% off of their membership until the end of July. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. And if you are starting to get a taste for this To Be Magnetic work, or maybe you want to join our upcoming summer challenge, or even just try out our new Regulate DIs, the fight or flight, the freeze or fawn, which will help get you back into that nice, calm, regulated state, you can join with our big summer sale going on right now for $96 off. It is a limited time sale, so be sure to join before it expires. And here is this week's Expander story.
Hi, I'm Eliza, and I live in New York City. I've manifested a ton in the years that I've been using To Be Magnetic. I have been in a very big up level for quite some time and been manifesting wildly. And I recently decided that it was time for me to really work on unblocking and healing whatever wounding I have around abundance. With Summer Challenge, that's what I've been taking it in through it. And within the first day of doing the work of looking at what the actual block I have is, specifically around love and abundance, I have two major blocks that kind of tie together, but a big one is that I have a hard time believing that if something is not a necessity, then it's going to be difficult or unnecessary for the universe to bring that into my life. And I have a belief, I guess, that I don't believe abundance is necessary. The other major block that I have, which has a lot more to do with the love component, is this anger and frustration over not having control over the timing. And I was taking the Summer Challenge work through with my therapist, and we really pinpointed that I have this difficulty with having control over the timing when it comes to love, and that I don't believe abundance and luxury is necessary, but it's something that I deeply desire. And it was wild. The second I pinpointed that, I started getting a flood of job offers. One will double my income. A second one, which I can do if I wanted to do both, would make my income more than triple, with the potential of kind of a crazy amount of commission if all goes well. I put my 2 weeks notice in at my current job because of these opportunities, and my current job came back with an offer of a $10 an hour raise, a promotion to assistant store manager, and some other wild stuff. This has been completely crazy, and I'm so grateful for you guys, and I hope this helps. Thanks.
Okay, we'll see you guys next week.